Over 1 million engines fail every year, not because of bad parts, but because of simple oil mistakes most drivers don't even realize they're making. From using the wrong oil type to a common dipstick error that ruins engines silently, we're exposing the habits that cost thousands. If you want your engine to last and your wallet to stay full, this is the information you can't afford to skip. Mistake number 1. Using the wrong oil type. You might think oil is oil. As long as the engine's got some, you're good to go, right? That assumption has silently destroyed more engines than you'd believe. Every engine is engineered with razor-thin tolerances. The space between moving parts is often thinner than a human hair. And the oil, it's not just there to lubricate. It's the only thing preventing high-speed metal from grinding itself into oblivion. That's why manufacturers obsess over specific oil grades like 5W30 or 10W40. It's not random. It's chemistry and physics in action. Now imagine pouring in something too thin. On a hot day or at high RPMs, it can't maintain the pressure needed to cushion internal components. It breaks down, loses film strength, and lets metal-on-metal friction take over. Pistons wear faster, bearings scar, timing chains stretch too thick, and the opposite happens. The oil pump struggles, especially during cold starts. That means key areas like the camshaft, turbo, or timing chain don't get oil fast enough. Those few seconds, that's where damage begins. And it's not just temperature. Your climate matters too. In cold environments, thicker oils struggle to flow. In heat, thinner oils can vaporize and lose protection. Using the wrong type turns your oil into a liability instead of a shield. So don't wing it. Your engine isn't guessing. Neither should you. The wrong oil doesn't just hurt performance, it quietly shortens your engine's life, one drive at a time. And unfortunately, even with the right oil, some drivers still make this next mistake that ends up costing just as much. Mistake number 2, overfilling the engine. More oil doesn't mean more protection. It can actually be the exact opposite. When you shove too much oil into the crankcase, the crankshaft and rods have to churn through it like paddles in a bath. That aggressive aeration turns oil into froth. Foam can't hold a stable lubricating film, so critical surfaces end up running with air pockets between them instead of a steady oil film. Overfill also raises internal pressure. Seals and gaskets aren't built to withstand that extra shove. They start weeping, then leaking, then failing. Suddenly, a little too much becomes a slow drip, a burning smell, and eventually a repair bill that looks nothing like the cheap oil you bought. It's one of those mistakes that often happens in a hurry. A quick lube tech eyeballing a reservoir, a DIYer not waiting for the oil to settle, or someone checking the dipstick while the oil's still sloshing. You'd be surprised how many engines were ruined by just a little extra. Let's move to another silent killer that destroys engines: neglect. Mistake number 3, skipping regular oil changes. If there's one mistake that slowly, silently kills your engine, this is it. You can drive with the wrong filter for a while and even survive overfilling once or twice, but skip enough oil changes and your engine starts to rot from the inside. Over time, oil doesn't just get dirty, it breaks down. Heat, pressure, and combustion gases all work together to destroy its protective qualities. What used to be a slick, golden film turns into black sludge. Thick, sticky, acidic. That sludge clogs narrow oil passages, suffocates timing chains, and bakes onto critical engine parts like varnish. Even if you don't drive much, your oil still degrades. Additives break down just from age. Moisture builds up. Tiny metal particles settle in. So that car you only use on weekends? It's still deteriorating if you let the oil sit for too long. All professional mechanics recommend oil changes every 5,000 to 7,500 miles, or at least every 6 to 12 months. And no, the little dashboard light isn't always your best guide. It's a reminder, not a warranty. Especially if you drive short distances, tow trailers, or sit in stop-and-go traffic. Your oil breaks down faster than you think. Skipping an oil change might feel harmless, but do it enough times and you'll open the hood to a sludge-filled horror show. And that's assuming your engine hasn't already seized up by then. But what if you are doing your oil changes regularly, just in the wrong way? The next mistake is one almost every DIY mechanic has made. Mistake number 4, not pre-filling the new oil filter. You're doing everything right. Fresh oil, new filter, clean funnel. But then you skip one small step, and it costs your engine protection when it needs it most. Installing a new oil filter completely dry is a mistake even seasoned drivers make. It seems harmless. The oil will fill in once you start the engine, right? Technically, yes. But in reality, those first few seconds after startup are a brutal test for your engine. And if the filter's empty, it fails that test every single time. Here's why. When you fire up the engine, the oil pump's first job is to fill that dry filter. Only after that does oil start flowing to the parts that actually need it, like the camshaft, bearings, and turbo. Until the filter fills up, your engine's running dry. No cushion, no barrier, just raw metal grinding at high speed. It may not sound like much, just a few seconds, but repeat that cycle every oil change, and the damage stacks up. Over time, dry starts wear down critical surfaces, and etch microscopic grooves into components. And once those form, there's no going back. It's not a matter of if it fails, it's just when. The fix couldn't be simpler. Before installing the new filter, pour clean oil into it. Let it soak through the filter media. You don't have to fill it to the brim, just enough to prime the system. And if your filter installs horizontally, no problem. At least smear a little oil on the rubber gasket and thread it on gently. It's the tiny details that separate an engine that dies young from one that runs for 300,000 miles. And speaking of small mistakes that snowball, our next one is sneakier than most, because your car won't tell you you've done it wrong, but your oil will. Mistake number 5, trusting the first dipstick reading. You've just poured in the new oil. The cap's on, everything looks clean, you pull the dipstick, and it says full. Job done. Right? Not even close. This is one of the easiest and most dangerous traps people fall into during an oil change. The problem isn't the dipstick, it's when you're checking it. Right after adding oil, the liquid hasn't had time to cycle through the engine. It hasn't filled the filter. It hasn't pushed into all the tiny oil galleries, bearings, and passages. It's just sitting there in the pan, giving you a false sense of security. So when you check too early, it looks full. But the moment you start driving, that oil gets sucked into the system. And suddenly, you're running low. That full mark on the dipstick was never real. And now, your engine's running at high RPMs, high temperatures, and low protection. We've seen engines with scarred bearings and seized pistons, all because someone trusted that first reading. The fix is simple but crucial. After filling the oil, start the engine and let it idle for 60 seconds. This gives the oil pump enough time to circulate everything. Then shut it off and wait another minute. Let gravity bring the oil back to the pan. Then check the dipstick. That second reading, that's the one that matters. That's the one that tells you the truth. Next one is another hidden danger that sounds harmless, but can wreck your oil system without you even noticing. Mistake number 6, changing oil on an uneven surface. It sounds like no big deal. Jack up the car in the driveway, park on a slight incline, maybe one wheel's in the gutter. As long as you can reach the drain plug, what could go wrong? A lot, actually. When your car is tilted, so is the oil pan. That means a portion of the old oil, the dirtiest, sludgiest part, can pool in the low side and stay there. You might think you're draining everything out, but in reality, you're leaving behind the very contaminants you're trying to get rid of. Sludge, grit, tiny metal shavings, they all cling to the pan like tar, ready to mix with your fresh new oil and start the cycle of wear all over again. And that's just the first problem. The second is what happens after the change. When your vehicle's at an angle, the oil level on the dipstick becomes completely unreliable. Add too much, you risk frothing, overpressure, and seal failure. Add too little, you're starving your engine of lubrication the moment it starts. Either way, you're guessing, and that's never a good idea under the hood. The fix? Always park on a level surface before changing oil. If you must lift the car, use ramps or a jack to raise both sides evenly. And after filling, let the car idle briefly. Then check the dipstick again on flat ground to confirm the real oil level. Because when it comes to engine health, gravity isn't just a law, it's a liability. And next, we're diving into one of the most overlooked and misunderstood problems in DIY oil changes. Mistake number 7, using the wrong oil filter. It might look right, same shape, same thread, screws on just fine. But underneath that metal canister, the wrong oil filter can sabotage your engine from the inside out. And most people don't realize it until the damage is already done. Oil filters aren't universal. They're precision matched to your engine's specific needs. From thread pitch and seal diameter to internal components like the bypass valve, anti-drain back valve, and micron rating. Get even one of those wrong and you've got a ticking time bomb under your hood. Let's break it down. If your filter's micron rating is too coarse, it lets larger particles through, like tiny metal fragments or combustion residue. Over time, those abrasives circulate with every drop of oil, sanding down your bearings and scarring cylinder walls. On the flip side, a filter that's too fine can clog prematurely. When that happens, the bypass valve kicks in, sending unfiltered oil straight to your engine. It flows fast, but brings the junk with it. And that's not all. Use a filter without an anti-drain back valve when your engine actually needs one. And all the oil drains back into the pan when the engine shuts off. So every time you start the car, it runs dry for the first few seconds. Multiply that by hundreds of starts and you're basically accelerating wear with every ignition. Worst case, an improperly sized gasket or thread pitch can cause slow leaks, or even full-on filter blowouts under pressure. So how do you avoid this mess? Don't just guess based on looks. Always match the filter to your manufacturer's specs. Cross-reference the OEM part number, not just the brand name. If you're using aftermarket filters, make sure the internal components match the requirements, not just the outer shell. Because a $12 filter that doesn't fit perfectly can turn into a $10,000 engine replacement. And even if you do pick the right filter, there's still one more mistake that too many people make. They simply skip changing it altogether. Mistake number 8, not changing the oil filter. You change the oil, feel good about it, and close the hood, but the oil filter, you leave it. After all, it looks fine, right? Big mistake. That little metal canister isn't just a container, it's the gatekeeper between clean lubrication and complete engine failure. Every time your engine runs, that filter traps combustion byproducts, sludge, and microscopic metal shavings. Over time, it becomes a toxic sponge. And if you don't replace it, all that junk gets pushed straight into your fresh oil. Think of it like cleaning your house with a dirty mop. You're not removing grime, you're just redistributing it. And a clogged filter does worse than recycle waste. As it reaches capacity, oil flow begins to choke. Pressure drops, bearings, camshafts, and timing components stop getting the lubrication they need. In severe cases, the filter's bypass valve opens, sending unfiltered oil rushing through the engine. Fast, but filthy. It's a shortcut that doesn't save you money. It just delays the cost. And when the consequences show up, it's not a $15 filter you're replacing. It's a $3,000 repair for worn bearings, damaged lifters, or even complete engine seizure. Golden rule: change the filter every single time you change the oil. No exceptions, no guesswork, no excuses. They're a team, and if one goes bad, the other suffers too. But what if you did change the filter and you still got it wrong? The next mistake happens even when you pick the right part. It's all about timing, and it shows up at the very first second your engine starts. Mistake number 9, not warming up the engine before draining. Here's a mistake that feels harmless, even logical. You crawl under your car, crack open the drain plug, and let the oil pour out cold. It seems fine, but what you don't see is the sludge, grit, and metal shavings clinging to the insides of your engine, because the oil wasn't warm enough to carry them out. Cold oil is thick, slow, sluggish. It doesn't flow well, and it certainly doesn't flush out contaminants hiding in corners of the pan, around the valve train, or deep in the oil galleries. When you drain it cold, a significant amount of that dirty oil stays behind and mixes right back in with the fresh oil you just added. It's like rinsing your coffee mug and then filling it with clean water to drink. That leftover sludge, it becomes a silent threat. It breaks down the additives in new oil faster, it leaves abrasive particles floating in your system, and over time, those particles scrape away at the very components you're trying to protect, like bearings, lifters, and camshaft lobes. The solution is ridiculously simple. Just start the engine and let it idle for 2 to 3 minutes before draining. You're not heating it up for a drive, just warming it enough so the oil thins out and flows freely. That little bit of warmth turns thick gunk into a steady stream, pulling more contaminants out with it. Skip this step, and your oil change becomes half a job. Do it right, and you dramatically extend your engine's lifespan. One warm-up at a time. Bonus tip: the one additive that can save high-mileage engines. Even if you've done everything right, use the correct oil, change the filter, measured perfectly, there's one extra step that can quietly extend your engine's life, and hardly anyone talks about it. We're talking about high-mileage oil additives, the secret weapon for aging engines. Here's what happens over time. Seals start to harden and shrink. Gaskets lose their flexibility. Microscopic wear creates tiny gaps in precision components. That leads to oil leaks, pressure loss, and metal-on-metal friction. Even with clean oil flowing through the system, you're losing performance and protection mile after mile. That's where the right additive steps in. High-quality formulas like those containing ZDDP, molybdenum disulfide, or seal conditioners restore pliability to old gaskets, reduce friction, and reinforce worn surfaces with protective layers. Think of it like armor for parts that are past their prime. Especially if you drive an older car with over 100,000 miles or one that's been neglected in the past, a good oil additive can mean smoother startups, reduced ticking and engine noise, fewer leaks, improved fuel economy, and longer engine lifespan. But here's the catch. Not all additives are created equal. Some are just snake oil with fancy packaging. Others can actually thin your oil and make things worse. So look for additives that are API certified, designed for your engine's specific oil grade, and backed by actual test data, not just online hype. Used right, this one step, added at every oil change, can quietly reverse years of damage and buy your engine thousands more miles. Want to know more about how to maintain your car properly without overspending? Hit like and subscribe. We have a lot of videos that can help you. And drop your most surprising car service story in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Until next time.